Hi, this is Mike Kopkas. As most of you know, Coleman Rosenberg has been presenting a series called Shooting in the Style of a Famous Photographer, or sometimes referred to as the Masters of Photography series, and I wanted to contribute to his efforts. 7 or 8 years ago, I took a photography course at Baldwin Wallace, and the instructor assigned each student a contemporary photographer to research. We were to present a slideshow detailing the photographer's body of work, followed up by a set of our own photographs shot in that particular photographer's style. I was assigned Cindy Sherman, a conceptual photographer who works out of New York. I had never heard of Cindy before, but by the time I got done with the project, I was very fascinated by her career and the things she had done. Since I still had a copy of the slideshow, I offered to put together a video for Coleman to use as part of his series. Hopefully, you'll find Cindy Sherman's work as fascinating as I did. First, a little biography of Cindy. She was born on January 19, 1954, in Glen Ridge, New Jersey, and grew up in Long Island, New York. As a child, she spent a lot of time watching television in the basement of her home and playing dress-up. She was also fascinated by the cinema. These interests would turn out to play a major part in her future career. She earned a BA from Buffalo State College, the State University of New York, in 1976. She began her college career majoring in painting, but was frustrated by its limitations and then took up photography. In her own words, there was nothing more to say through painting. I was meticulously copying other art, and then I realized I could just use a camera and put my time into an idea instead. She actually failed the photography class as a freshman, but then repeated the course and was introduced to conceptual art. Now, conceptual art is where the concept or idea of the piece takes precedence over its aesthetics. One of her tutors at Buffalo State was Les Crims, who was a pioneer in staged photography. And these things would also play a major part in her future work. She currently lives in New York City, where she continues working as a photographer. She has also done some work as a film director, as well as a fashion photographer. Most of Cindy's works are portraits, in which she, as both the photographer and model, gives life to a wide range of characters using a variety of elaborate costumes, makeup, and settings. She usually works alone in her studio, serving as makeup artist, wardrobe woman, set designer, photographer, and model. She basically does it all. In her early years, she considered herself a performance artist who took pictures of her performances rather than a photographer. She describes her process as intuitive, basically changing elements such as light, mood, location, and costume, playing with those until she finds what she wants. In her words, I think of becoming a different person. I look into a mirror next to the camera. It's trance-like. By staring into it, I try to become that character through the lens. When I see what I want, my intuition takes over, both in the acting and in the editing. Seeing that other person that's up there, that's what I want. It's like magic. Sherman's work raises some challenging and important questions about the role and representation of women in society and in the media. She leaves her works untitled so that the viewer themselves can develop their own story around the photograph. Her characters are thought-provoking, suggesting to the viewer that their real lives are not simple but complex. Sherman works in series, typically photographing herself in a range of costumes, although in some of her later works she removes herself from the picture and instead uses prosthetic body parts. Her early works were often very grainy and out of focus, with shadows on the wall behind her and the cable release lying on the floor. Her emphasis seemed to be more on the roles she was playing and less on photographic techniques and quality results. The works demonstrate her ability to assume a role and stage it in such a way that you are drawn into building a story around the picture, which helps to kind of explain its appeal. So we're going to go through a number of these series that she put together, and they've all been given names. I don't know that she named them, but they've kind of taken on these names. And the first one was Bus Riders that she did in 1976. Now, 76 was the year she graduated from college, so this may have been part of a college assignment. I don't know for sure. But photographed in black and white and using a stark minimalist setting, but with elaborate costumes and makeup, she portrays a variety of people riding on a bus, evidently people she had observed while riding the bus. So you can see, again, very minimalist setting, shadows on the wall, not very good photographically, but again, she was not going for aesthetics. She was going for concept, trying to capture characters of people she saw on the bus. And again, you got to keep in mind with these pictures that this is her as the model in all of these in different disguises. She portrays both men and women, black and white. And again, you'll see photographically, they're not very sophisticated, but again, her idea was getting the concept across. Another series that she did in 76 was referred to as Murder Mystery People. Again, this series of black and white prints mimics characters from a Hollywood murder mystery. Characters like the starlet, the leading man, the director, the maid, the son, and the press. In some works, she actually cut out the black and white figures and mounted them on a white background, reminiscent of paper dolls. Again, maybe a throwback to her childhood where she loved playing dress up and playing with paper dolls. I don't know who all of these characters are. I'm guessing this might be the starlet. I'm assuming that this is the sun. Obviously, this is the press. Another one, I think, of the sun. And here's an example of where she actually cut the figures out and then basically mounted them on a white background. And another one, the same technique. You can see they're very reminiscent of an old-time movie or movie. In 1977 to 1980, she came up with a series of 69 black and white photographs where she posed as a B-movie, foreign film, and film noir style actresses from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. This series is the first one that brought her some fame. The photos beg the viewer to build a story that fits the picture. And of the pictures that I have included in this slideshow, these are the ones, these ones and a few others are ones that really fascinated me because, again, from the expression on the characters' faces and the settings that they're in, it almost begs you to make up a story about what's going on. I love the backgrounds that she uses in a lot of these. And again, look at the expressions on the face. You got to remember that these are not models. This is her posing in all of these. This one kind of reminds me of the Honeymooners, the old television show, for those that are too young to remember. In 1980, she did a series that is entitled Rear Screen Projections. She began using color and a larger format with backgrounds that are projected on a screen behind her. The photos tend to look like they're being viewed on a television screen. I think my favorite set of pictures was this one that's entitled Centerfolds and Horizontals. And again, she did these in 1981, portraying young women in a variety of roles, from seductive to innocent to frightened and vulnerable. This set of 12 pictures calls attention to how women are stereotyped in films, television, and magazines. These pictures were commissioned by the magazine Art Forum, but in fact were never used because the editor who commissioned them felt that they would be misunderstood. Again, I find these fascinating just from the mood that they portray, the looks on the faces, the story behind the pictures. Again, it almost begs you to think of a story that would match these particular pictures. Now, this picture in particular, although it looks a little grainy on my screen, this one actually sold at an auction for $3.8 million. And at the time, it was the highest price ever paid for a photograph. It has since been superseded by a photograph somebody paid $4 million plus for. This one I find absolutely fascinating. Just the look in the eyes, the expression on the face, the pose, the composition. I think it's incredible. In 1985 to 1989, she kind of went off in a different direction and kind of did some strange photos. And I don't completely understand these, but that's the way conceptual photography can be. In this series, she has tired of appearing as the model in her own photos, and she begins replacing herself in the picture with prostheses and mannequins in disaster scenes. The images become more disturbing, often depicting broken bodies and grotesque faces, vomit, and garbage. Now, in this one, I think she's still in the picture. But they're very dark, very foreboding. Here's an example of where she uses some prosthetic parts. All right, and then in 1989 to 1990, she did a series of 35 large color photographs that imitated European portrait paintings of the 15th through early 19th centuries. And she often went over the top using prosthetic parts and exaggerated features. And you'll see what I mean by some of these. They're very reminiscent of portraits painted in the Renaissance and the 15th through 19th centuries. In 2003, she did a series on clowns. Making use of wildly colorful backgrounds, Sherman portrays a number of clowns. The images make one wonder what kind of person is truly behind all the makeup and costumes. Again, I found these fascinating, and in fact, as part of my project, I went out and bought some clown makeup and did some pictures of myself dressed up as a clown. And it was a lot of fun. I used Photoshop to create some wild backgrounds. And again, trying to imitate her style. The final series that I'm going to show is what are referred to as society portraits, and she started these in 2008. I don't know, I think she's continued on this route for a little bit longer than just the 1 year. I'm not quite sure what she's working on today, but in this series of very large portraits of society matrons, Sherman focuses on today's cultural obsession with youth, beauty, and status. This photo is a photo of Cindy at an exhibit, and you can see that the society portraits that she put together are very, very large portraits. So you get an idea of how large they are in this particular photo. And then this is a picture of her, a more recent photograph. I'm not exactly sure what year this was taken. Now, she did win a number of awards. I'll just read through these quickly. A 1995 recipient of a MacArthur Fellowship, which is also known as a Genius Grant. She won a National Arts Award in 2001, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences Award in 2003, the Guildhall Academy of the Arts Lifetime Achievement Award for the Visual Arts in 2005, and the Jewish Museum's Man Ray Award in 2009. So she's very well recognized in the art world. I did include some quotes that I thought were interesting. First one says, "I feel I'm anonymous in my work. When I look at the pictures, I never see myself. They aren't self-portraits. Sometimes I disappear." So she's not taking selfies. She's really trying to develop a character. She just happens to be the person that is trying to make the character come to life. Some of them I'd hope would seem very psychological. While I'm working, I might feel as tormented as the person I'm portraying. And again, I think that comes out, especially in that Centerfolds and Horizontals series, of just looking at the faces and seeing the torment in their eyes. The still must tease with the promise of a story the viewer of it itches to be told. So again, she doesn't title her images. She wants the viewer to build the story based on what they see. I never thought I was acting. When I became involved with close-ups, I needed more information in the expression. I couldn't depend on background or atmosphere. I wanted the story to come from the face. Somehow the acting just happened. So again, she is basing the high point of the picture is the face, the expression that comes out from the face, and not really depending on the background to tell the story, but trying to get that story told through the face. I didn't want to make high art. I had no interest in using paint. I wanted to find something that anyone could relate to without knowing about contemporary art. I wasn't thinking in terms of precious prints or archival quality. I didn't want the work to seem like a commodity. So she's not really in it for sales or whatever. She really wants to express herself creatively. I found this quote fascinating. If I knew what the picture was going to be like, I wouldn't make it. It was almost like it was made already. The challenge is more about trying to make what you can't think of. And again, I think most of us struggle with, hey, I'm going to take some pictures, but I don't know what to do, and I don't want to do it until I have an idea of what the final product is going to look like. She doesn't approach it that way. She jumps in and then tries to come up with something as she's doing the work. And then finally, when I do work, I get so much done in such a concentrated time that once I'm through a series, I'm so drained I don't want to get near the camera. And we can probably, some of us can probably relate to that as well. Now, I did include some website links. This first one in particular, I think, is the best of them. There was a show on public television called Art 21, and it highlighted artists from the 21st century. And it's not just photographers, but it's photographers, painters, sculptors, performance artists, and so on. So it's a variety of artists. She was on one show called Transformation. And again, there were several artists on this particular show. So if you are going to look at this and want to just see the section on Cindy, it starts about 15 minutes and 30 seconds in. So click on it and jump ahead and take a look. And they spend a lot of time in her studio. They spend a lot of time showing the props that she uses, talking to her about her process. So very, very interesting show. These three are also interesting because, again, she's in most of them. The YouTube ones for sure, they have her being taped. I don't remember, the magazine one might just be a story about her. But again, very interesting getting to know her and getting to see how she does her work. So I'd encourage you to look at those links, especially the one from the Art 21 show. I hope you found this interesting. I hope it gave you some ideas on some things to try. I would encourage you to try doing some costume work. Get yourself in a situation, try and become a character. The clown makeup is an easy way to do that. Get some clown makeup and do yourself up as a clown and take some pictures. Or just try put yourself in different roles. Think of roles that you would like to play or roles that you've seen other people play, and see if you can come up with a picture that expresses that feeling. It's certainly a good way to develop your skills as a photographer and challenge you in maybe something you've never tried before. So hopefully that was helpful.